Okay, so tonight's passage is from Matthew 26, verses 1 to 16. So when Jesus had finished saying all of these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the place of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they schemed to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him. But not during the festival, they said, or there may be a riot among the people. Jesus anointed at Bethany. While Jesus was in Bethany, in the home of Simon the leper, a woman came to him with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, which she poured on his head as he was reclining at the table. When the disciples saw this, they were indignant. "Why the waste?" they asked. "This perfume could have been sold at a high price and the money given to the poor." Aware of this, Jesus said to them, "Why are you bothering this woman? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, but you will not always have me. When she poured this perfume on my body, she did it to prepare me for burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever this gospel is preached throughout the world, that she has done, what she has done will also be told in memory of her." Then one of the 12, the one called Judas, went to the chief priests and asked, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him over to you?" So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over. In this passage, we hear about a woman who is anointing Jesus for burial. It's a well-known story and one that I've heard many times in my life. However, I've not read the passages before and after while connecting them all together. So when I read the three together, I couldn't help but wonder why we have such a beautiful story right between two plots to kill Jesus. It seems to set up the question, what is Jesus worth? In verses 1 to 5, we see the chief priests and the elders of the people believing that Jesus is worth more to them when he is dead than when he is alive. But then verse 14 onwards, we have Judas saying that Jesus is only worth 30 pieces of silver. But in the middle of these verses, we have a woman telling us that Jesus is worth everything that she has. So let's go back 1 year. It's March 2020, just before the UK went into its first lockdown. If you went to the shop, you couldn't find any toilet roll, and hand sanitizer and soap prices had increased due to the sheer demand. Now imagine we're back at Lace Hill for our final service before lockdown, and on my way to church, I picked up the last bottle of sanitizer in the whole of Buckingham. I go to the church, straight up to the front, and I pour it all over Tim. You'd have all thought I was a fool. We all needed sanitizer to help us stay safe, but I just poured the entire bottle on Tim. You'd be right to be annoyed at me, just like the disciples were at the woman. We all know that there are some things that we can do at any time, such as feeding the poor, but there are also some things that can only be done once. And if you miss the opportunity, then that's that. You don't get another chance. This woman doesn't hesitate to take the opportunity to do what she felt she needed to do and prepare Jesus for his burial. His reply shows us that this was the right thing to do in the situation. But it is important to remember that the disciples were not wrong. They're living in a world where you give to the poor. What they wanted to do with the jar wasn't necessarily wrong. They wanted to sell it, and that's not bad. But the intention behind their actions wasn't focused on Jesus. Instead, they were focused on being right, righteous, and self-righteous. They let the small yet impactful thing pass them by. The beauty in what this woman was doing is that she was giving everything that she had to Jesus. The perfume was everything, but she was willing to give it all to him. And this happened even before Jesus was crucified, before he rose from the dead, and before people knew for sure that he was the Christ. There was no proof or anything, but she still gave it all to him. When you love someone, you never calculate how much you can give. You just keep giving. When you've given all that you can, it's still usually not enough. It's so easy for us to judge the decisions of other people, to cast blame and jump to conclusions, but we don't know what giving looks like for every single person. The only thing we know for sure is what God has called us to do and what he is asking us to give. This passage reminds us that a good deed lasts forever, that something positive can light up a dark world. At the end of Jesus' life, there was so much bitterness and tragedy. This story shines its light in a darkening world. During the past year, there's been so many positive things happening that wouldn't have happened had there not been a global pandemic. Those things have been the light in a world that is, for so many, a darkening world. They've been a lift that everyone has needed and a lift that everyone will remember for years to come. So what is your jar of perfume today? What is the one thing that God is asking you to give him? The thing you're holding on to so tightly? Is it time or energy? Your dreams and your plans for the future? Or giving more attention to something that you might be ignoring? What can you do to give it all? And what can you do to realize when you're just giving enough?